I posited it in some Facebook group the other day that there might be more than meets the eye, and not in the Transformers way, about Donald Trump and the ICE raids and the location of the ICE raids, and is there more political issues on top of him just being bigoted and xenophobic and using these people to drive to make America white again, if you will, right? So I looked up, the first thing I had to look up when investigating my ideas here was, where are the ICE raids taking place? And so the biggest ICE raids that are taking place are the red dots. There's one way down here in Puerto Rico. You've got Boston, you've got New York, you've got Philly, you've got Buffalo, Chicago, St. Paul, Seattle, Wilsonville, Oregon. I'm not sure what the demographic makeup of that is. San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, Phoenix, Arizona, Denver, Colorado, twice, Arlington and Dallas and Miami. So those are the locations where some of the biggest raids have taken place. And you might think, well, I mean, most of them are big cities, right? Liberal Dan, most of those are, that's probably where you're going to find the most people, right? Well, there are other big cities. There are other large cities that are out there that, maybe Houston. I mean, Houston is also kind of a Democratic city, but there are cities that he targeted, and there's cities that seem to be conspicuously not targeted. And then I remembered, I want to say it was Congressman Joe Barton from Texas, I think 6th Congressional District, when he served way back in the day. Served, in quotes. There was data that showed that his district specifically only had 40% Republicans. 40% of the district was registered Republicans. So how do you win with a district that's 40% Republican? Well, you make sure that that number is still the highest number of everybody that's there, and you make sure that there are, other folks who are not registered to vote who are shoved into that district to help gerrymander Republicans into power. So you normally wouldn't want to have a majority of the people in a district be Republicans, but if you could swap out some of the people for people who are never going to be able to vote, for non-citizen, resident alien type folks, people here legally, people here in violation of our border policies, or what have you, you enable yourself to improve the seating of the Republicans in the House, in the legislatures, etc. And it seems to go against what you might think, because we've seen a lot of times when Donald Trump fought counting non-citizens as part of the census, even though that is blatantly unconstitutional. The Constitution requires a census of all persons, not just all citizens. And there's that. So I'm thinking, well, and then you have they were wanting, I guess, during the whole Biden administration, and you saw DeSantis and Abbott sending all of these people off to Martha's Vineyard and into blue states. And I'm sitting there like, good, send them to the blue states. So when apportionment comes around, you won't have to worry about, our seats in Congress will gain more because the Republicans kicked all of the migrants, the undocumented migrants and other folks out of their states and moved them into blue states. So therefore, when we have a census that's run, those blue states get more congressional seats when we apportion those seats, right? So, but you still have had examples of Republicans pushing for this, pushing for them to not be counting. But I don't believe that to be true. I don't believe they're actually trying to do that. So I went and had to look up even more information. So I found this other site right here where it was talking about how non-citizens impact political representation in the partisan makeup of the U.S. House of Representatives. At present, the the apportionment of U.S. Sets among the states, as well as the drawing of congressional district lines in states, are based on total population, not citizenship. At the time of the last congressional election in 2022, Census Bureau data captured 21.6 million non-citizens, roughly half of whom are here in violation of our border policies. Because these non-citizens are not evenly distributed, they make up a large share of the population. And we go on to see the 13 congressional districts with the highest share of non-citizens in 2022 have roughly the same combined population of voting age U.S. citizens as the 9 districts with the lowest non-citizen shares. Thus, in these 9 districts, there are fewer representatives for the same number of citizens. Population of districts can differ partly because of the way the House seats are apportioned among the states, but within states, population should be roughly even, yet non-citizens caused significant distortions in 2022. Texas is 33rd, where 29% of adults are non-citizens, has 208,000 fewer voting age citizens than Texas is 21st, where 4% are non-citizens. Florida 26th versus Florida 6th. California's 34th versus California's 3rd. New York 6th versus New York 21st, etc. So not surprisingly, these non-citizen share of the voting age population has a total impact on turnout. In the 10 districts with the largest non-citizen shares, the combined vote total was roughly half of the combined vote total in the 10 districts with the highest citizen shares. In effect, each voter in the 10 lowest citizen districts had about twice the influence on the election as voters in the 10 highest citizenship districts. It took many more votes to win districts comprised largely of citizens than it did in districts with large non-citizens. Again, part of what I'm saying, it's easier to win a district if you pack that district with people who can't vote. But here's the thing. Districts where non-citizens comprise a large share of the population tend to vote Democratic, while high citizenship districts tend to vote Republican. On the 24 districts where there are 5 adults is not an American, where 1 in 5 adults are not American citizens, only 4 were won by Republicans in 2022. In contrast, 54 where less than 2% of the adults are not citizens, or just 5 just represented by a Democrat. So here's where my theory might start to fall apart. If you're looking at this data right here, you think, well, this data clearly is showing that Liberal Dan is wrong, right? Because it's saying here in 2022, each 1 percentage point increase in the non-citizen share of the congressional district's adult population is associated with a 1.8% point increase in Democratic share of the two-party vote. So basically what they're saying is for every 1% of a district that each citizen is, you see 1.8 more percentage of a share going to Democrats. So I'm wrong, right? I'm wrong? Am I wrong? I don't think so. Didn't think so. Why don't I think so? Well, because this is taking into consideration all of the congressional districts. So if you have a congressional district in a very blue state that has very, very, let's say Los Angeles. Los Angeles might have lots of tightly included non-citizens and citizens in the same tightly populated areas, and those areas are going to be mainly Democratic, and as such, those are going to skew the argument that is being made here, which is that not that every single district is going to cause a district to be swayed back and forth, because these districts, if you drew them differently and made them more equally, you'd still probably have the same districts in California, for example. Whereas other states and other districts, it might not be the same. So I had to continue to dig, where I found this. January 24th, 2024, apportionment and immigration. 95% of non-citizen growth went to the GOP states since 2019. In response to a question about, and this is by David Baer, who is a conservative. In response to a question about, I believe he's a conservative, as part of, Cato Institute. In response to a question about redistricting immigration or restricting immigration, House Representative Yvette Clarke recently stated, "I need more people in my district just for redistricting purposes." When a Republican member of Congress asked whether this was motivation for other Democrats, including President Biden, to oppose more extreme asylum restrictions, at a hearing which I testified last week, former head of Immigration and Customs Enforcement Tom Homan stated, "I certainly believe it is probably associated with the decision to overturn the Trump census rule, blah, blah, blah. So now immigrants will be mandated to be counted in a sentence." It's not an executive order that does that. It's the Constitution that does that. Although former President Trump did attempt to exclude some non-citizens from the census count and from House apportionment, multiple courts found those efforts to be illegal and unconstitutional. The Constitution is clear. Representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state. But does this provision of the Constitution, whatever it matters, give Republicans a good reason to oppose immigration? No. The data are equally clear. Recent immigration trends are benefiting Republicans in states where they control the legislature and manage redistricting. About 62% of the 3 million increase in total immigrant population from March 2019 to March 2023 has occurred in GOP states, according to the Current Population Survey Annual Social and Economic Supplement. The American Community Survey, which larger sample size but slightly older, attributes 60% of the growth in the immigrant population to GOP states from July 2019 to July 2022. These percentages are also similar for Latin American immigrant population growth. What about non-citizens who might be excluded by a U.S. citizen-only census? For them, an overwhelming 95% of the increase in the non-citizen population has been in GOP states from March 2019 to March 2023. Eliminating the growth of the non-citizen population from 2019 to 2023 would have cost Republican states 1.2 million people, or about 2 seats in Congress. The average congressional district has 760,000 people. Net increase in Figure 1 of population of immigrants and non-citizens by state legislative control. All immigrants mostly goes to the Republican Party, with a chunk going to the Democratic states, but an increase in Republican states, 1.8 million versus 1.1 million in blue states. But when it comes to non-citizens, the increase in GOP states, 1.2 million versus 71,000. Republican states have benefited from an influx of migrants, regardless of their legal status or what have you. And then this list shows like the change, immigrants, change in non-citizens, and between Alabama, Alaska, and all these other states. And we're not going to go into the details of every single one, but basically, this individual is basically showing you exactly what I was talking about. That when you have these people, the immigrants, the folks who are not able to vote, but still affect the census, when you have these people going into your states, you are going to give the Republican states an advantage. You're going to give them an advantage when it comes to apportionment, and you're going to enable them, when they have control of who draws the maps, the ability to redistrict those districts in such a way so that even though you might see, more immigrant folks in these populations that are more densely populated, which tend to be more democratically run, when you draw the lines, when it comes to gerrymandering, you can do all the shenanigans you want to do, especially if you're a conservative state. For example, up until very, very recently, the conservatives who run Texas, instead of allowing the city of Austin to have Democratic representation in Congress, they chopped up the city and put a little bit of Democrats here, a little bit of Democrats here, a little bit of Democrats here, and moved all these little shell games going on to basically make it so that the Democrats who lived in Austin wouldn't have their say, whereas the Republicans would have much greater say. And then here's another piece by David Baer. Opponents of immigration constantly claim unauthorized immigrants hurt Republicans electorally. The latest effort from Ian Smith of Immigration Reform Law Institute, who inaccurately claims in a piece that immigration gives more congressional seats to heavily Democratic states. It's true. Immigrants increase the number of people counted towards apportionment. Problem with Smith's claim is that he defines Democratic state based on presidential vote in 2012, but presidential elections don't determine redistricting for Congress. State legislators do. The best way to determine if new seats in Congress will turn red or blue is to control the state legislature. Viewed this way, Smith's claim crumbles. He takes for granted that states which voted against Mitt Romney, the anti-immigration reform candidate, would be most attractive to unauthorized immigrants, assuming his conclusion to be Democratic. Both claims are untrue. We can put Smith's claim to the test with careful state-by-state estimates. Adding up the illegal population states with unified Democratic legislatures, dividing by 70,000, a rough estimate of each congressional district in 2011, yields the Democrats 7 additional seats in the House of Representatives, 1 less than Smith asserts. Performing the same procedure for split legislatures results in 2 new seats for those states For states with unified Republican legislature, the illegal population gives them 7 additional seats, the same number as the Democratic states. In other words, illegal immigration not only made a little difference in the most recent apportionment in Congress, it made no difference at all. Smith's claim is simply false. Smith is even more off base with this. If we restrict our view to illegal immigration since 1990, we find that Republican states have actually come out ahead. Republican states gained almost a full House seat in Congress from illegal immigration between 1990 and 2010. What about more recently? The illegal immigration from 2000 to 2010 netted the Republicans about 6 seats in redistricting. Democrats managed only 4.5, giving the Republicans yet another seat advantage. This shows a few things. First of all, the traditional narrative that liberal states attract illegal immigration is wrong. Legal immigration shifted decisively away from liberal states in the 1990s, blah, blah, blah. Second, improves the illegal immigration makes little difference to apportionment in Congress. Even when Republicans got a boost due to it in 1990, it was insignificant. Finally, it demonstrates that Republicans can win in states with immigrants. Smith regurgitates the old myth, blah, 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 blah. So here's this one guy from the Cato Institute who is clearly backing up my claims. In fact, showing that if you do not look at the things from that big, large point of view, and you only look at those things, where, not just, oh, these people live by these people live by these people, therefore it's going to help Democrats. No, that's shown to be false. This guy helped prove that argument for me and for everybody. So we have to take with as much grains of salt as possible the claims by Republicans that they're opposing, illegal immigration or whatever, that they're opposing, whatever. They actually want these people in their states because they know that that's how they get more votes. They'll play it up. They will absolutely scapegoat immigrants when it comes to the ills of our country. They will absolutely make it seem like they're trying to do something about it. Of course, when Donald Trump claims he does something about it, the image that we saw from the Trump administration, sometimes they were saying that it was encounters with people who were crossing the border. Other times it said it was detainments of people or arrests or whatever for people crossing the border. They weren't quite really sure how to be able. And even one of the conservative callers in to Jeff Carrera's radio program on Ringside Politics, whatever, one person who I've featured on Words of Redneck Wisdom in a previous show, probably multiple previous shows. This guy, his name is Cowboy. Even he doesn't believe the Trump numbers. Even he doesn't believe that Trump is being accurate because we're not seeing what's going on by the border. So even he doubts what's going on here. Again, because the reason I doubt Donald Trump when he says that, our numbers are better, nobody has better numbers, is again, all based off of his claims that if you have more testing, you have more cases, when he made that statement during his rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's obviously silly. You don't have more cases because you test. The cases exist regardless of if you test. You just reveal the cases when you test. And he didn't want the optics of people seeing that cases were going up or how many cases overall we had in this country because he felt that would make him look bad in the presidential election. So if he's going to do that with COVID numbers and put people's lives at risk, why wouldn't he also do that with the immigration numbers as well? So I have no reason to believe, and I'm not saying that Donald Trump should do better on his numbers or prove that the numbers. I'm saying that we have no reason to believe that his numbers are true, regardless of whether or not we agree with Donald Trump or disagree with him on his immigration policies. Clearly, we disagree with him here. Clearly, they're not giving people due process. Clearly, they're catching up false positives. Clearly, they're harming people who shouldn't be harmed. That being said, all of this stuff being for show, why, again, let's go back to that initial map that I brought up at the beginning of the video. So why here? Why are the raids going on here? Because these cities, tend to be Democrat. The one example where I might be not technically Democrat run is if you're looking at Miami, depending on if you're looking at Miami-Dade County and who runs Miami-Dade County versus Miami City proper. Miami City proper does have a Republican mayor, but Miami-Dade County overall has a Democratic mayor. They still call the person mayor, I guess, not council president, not county clerk or whatever you want to call the, other heads of counties or parishes wherever you live. Clearly, there's one, but to me, the fact that they're targeting these places, to me, says that it's not just about the cruelty of this administration when it comes to how they treat people who are here seeking asylum, people who are here seeking a better life for themselves and for their children. Cruelty when it comes to kicking out the family of a person who was getting brain cancer treatments, because why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he want to do a humane thing and allow somebody who needed continued treatments at a hospital to get those continued treatments? Why wouldn't he let that? Because she's a Hispanic girl, so therefore he's not going to like her. He's going to continue to use Hispanic people for his nefarious purposes. But that being said, he's also going to continue the Republican strategy of making sure that Democratic votes can get watered down, and or that Democratic areas in the census can have their power removed by removing those people who are here, who he can deport, whether or not they're actually here legally or not, because we all know he's going to deport whoever he wants to deport, and not worry about simple like checks and balances on his power, simple things like habeas corpus petitions, etc. He's not going to worry about that, but they're going to use this as a way to strengthen their political power on top of doing it to be cruel to people. Anyway, what do you think? Do you agree, disagree with me? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel. Of course, unless you're a Nazi, have a good day.